Okay, ration time. Best part of the stupid, terrible day. What do we got today? Corn cream! They're all corn cream. How are they all corn cream? These are tablets. How are you corn cream? Hey folks, sorry, just been prepping for doom because, hey, my goodness, here's some news. You know the news. Look, we're not going to make every episode about Donald Trump or Elon Musk, even though they are currently the presidents. We're all so very tired of him and demoralized in general. But hey, at least we'll die someday. That's neat. Bad start. Okay, sorry. Here's the thing. In these first months, we're getting this non-stop blast of executive orders and department gutting and economic collapse and ICE detentions for the terrible crime of activism. And it probably feels like the apocalypse out there. Like Fury Road, but with fewer public roads. And while it is tiring and terrifying, let us not forget that it's also extremely frustrating and enraging. And I guess the question is it angering enough to make people, do something about it? And when I say people, I really mean the people in power. And when I say something, I really mean, something. No notes on that word, even when I check notes. Resistance 2, cheer or die. Is that a Bring It On reference? Whatever, I don't care. So let's start with the Democrats. Remember the Democrats? They're the donkey team. They have a new logo. We did it! Yeah! They're the blue ones. I think Mark Ruffalo might be one. These ruffles are now the minority party across the board, much like how the Mel Gibsons were the minority back in 2008. Remember that? It's important to remember things. When Mitch Mitchell McConnell served as Senate Minority Leader to the Obama tyranny of tan suits, he used his position to craft a very vocal Republican resistance. That's all to say that there is a proven path forward for the minority party. You lie, shouted that guy at Obama. Slow everything down. Cause a scene. It's the classic child at a grocery store tactic. Take a dump on the floor. Of Congress, there is a fascist in charge. He's allowed an unelected billionaire Nazi to root through the entire government and gut stuff based on his broken brain's vibes and on what would help his personal business interests. Squat down and poop in the House chamber. Only go to the bathroom in there from now on. Nancy Mace wants to make a fake problem about which bathroom to use? Okay, well this is your new bathroom now. It is for pooping. Is there anything happening even close to that coming from the Democrats?
The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate like has not been seen in many decades. We won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country.
Okay, I would have preferred poop stuff, but that's Texas Democrat Al Green yelling to Trump that he does not, in fact, have a mandate like has not been seen in many decades, as the president put it. And Green is correct. The only actual historical aspect to Trump's victory was how close it was. He does not have a mandate. Good point, Al Green. Sorry you got censured for this, but at least your fellow Dems are no doubt behind you. Scratch that. Your fellow Dems minus the 10 who voted in favor of censuring you, Al Green. Jesus freaking Christ. Democrats. Jesus freaking Christ. There is a goddamn decorum perversion amongst the donkeys. They are addicted to this ghost of civility, huffing the fumes of some long dead era. And the Republicans know this and are taking full advantage of it. Like one of the Democrats that voted for the censure, Chrissy Houlihan, is now trying to censure Lauren Boebert for making blatantly racist remarks about Al Green. As if those two things are equal, as if the Republicans will also vote to censure Boebert, or that it matters at all. The president is detaining protesters. And the Democrats have been Democrats. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat House Minority Leader, set the flaccid tone by saying, quote, "We can't chase every outrage," in context of the Trump administration, as if moving trans women inmates to men's prisons, something that might kill them, is just some noise they have to cut past, just outrage bait. They want to trigger you with their threats to cut Social Security, you see. Don't fall for it. Don't kick the football that is filling Guantanamo Bay with migrants. Hey, Jeffries, how's your book tour going? Are you selling a lot of copies of the fucking ABCs of democracy? You know, until it gets banned and burned or whatever. Maturity over Mar-a-Lago. Boom! That'll show 'em. Got 'em. My God, we are in trouble. Hey, Gavin, why are you hosting Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon on your podcast? Surely you know they're literally just propagandists for your alleged ideological enemies that you're allowing to speak until you stop them so that you can briefly agree with them. Nice to see you balance that out by having Tim Walz on, but maybe you should have Bannon on again to chuckle with him about how he very blatantly wants a third Trump term. Could you ask him about the third Trump term that he wants? Who do you think you're courting with this? You think you're gonna get the right to join your side, or will they perhaps ridicule you while gladly using your platform to spread their extremely hateful message? Like, maybe instead of ingratiating yourself with any group of voters, this actually makes everybody hate you more. What are you doing, man? Why do they think that the reason they lost is because they didn't demonize trans people enough? If you're wondering, no, the Democrats are not polling well right now. The plan to court the fascists isn't working. But maybe if they roll over and die more, that'll change.
I'm trying to figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
Leverage, you ask? Well, I don't know, Jeffries. Why are you asking me? But since you are asking me, well, I suppose that if there was some kind of vote that needed to happen, like just randomly saying words, but a spending bill that needed Senate Democratic votes to advance, then the Democrats would have leverage with that vote in order to get some demands met. Or at least, as a form of protest, they could refuse those votes like they did in the House, what with the fascism and all. But if the Democrats in the Senate were to just bow down, that would be rather pathetic, right? Like if the minority leader Chuck Schumer told everyone to vote to advance this hypothetical terrible Trump budget and then went on a book tour. Wow, a lot of book tours going on, but also sorry, he canceled his book tour because his constituents were enraged with him. If that happened, that would be, as I said, pathetic. Especially if you, Hakeem Jeffries, hypothetically didn't call for Schumer's immediate resignation, but rather spent days doing your best to avoid talking about him and support him remaining in leadership, and are just sort of saying Dem leadership needs to coordinate better. Trump's been president for 2 months already. Probably should have discussed coordination a little earlier, guys. But hey, at least Schumer also still thinks he can reason with and work alongside some Republicans. They're not all MAGA, you see. It's 2017, you see. Can we get a good solid glare at Schumer real quick?
This right-wing group,
the MAGA.
not all Republicans.
Excellent. Oh, so good. More! Anyway, instead of that nonsense, take a dump. Seriously, act up. Physically move your body, and not just to raise a small sign that says Drumpf or whatever. Fun fact, when many Democrats planned to disrupt Trump's speech to Congress, party leaders actually told them to keep it quiet. The vibe was, quote, express your resistance, but don't become the story. Fucking what? Don't become the story. You know how Trump has won 2 elections by not becoming the story? That woman I referenced who's still in Congress and won't be censured for being racist, she became a story. I tell you what, you know what I'm talking about? She became the story, right? Okay, she's still around is my point. Are they allergic to winning? See, what's gonna happen is what keeps happening to the Democrats. They run a lukewarm campaign, lose, and then decide that the problem is that their campaign wasn't lukewarm enough. Blame it on the voters, don't admit wrongdoing, don't engage in introspection that isn't sanctioned by your donors, except for Tim Walz apparently, the only guy doing any of this. The current plan is to ignore all that human rights jizz and focus on the economy, which they perceive as the reason they lost in 2024. We've already discussed this in our election retrospective, and yes, the economy and inflation specifically were a big part of it. But I'd also argue that you could focus on more than one thing. But hey, let's for a moment ask what it would look like to be the opposing party to Trump's economic policies. You still have to do stuff and not just say stuff. It doesn't matter if it won't work. You need to show voters that you are trying. You can't just do a bunch of press releases about how you think tariffs are bad. You need to actually try and use the law to stop them. Again, even if it doesn't work, even if you don't know how to lawfully do it, because not to put too fine a point on it, but if you look around at the other political party, they don't seem to care much about the rules, guys. What's that about? You need to confront to their faces and challenge the Republicans who are desperately trying to avoid responsibility for this impending economic collapse. Literally giving up their power to vote away his tariffs so that Trump's cult won't go after them. Tying their own hands in cowardice. Cowards. Because currently, and unfortunately, the biggest resistance we actually seem to have against Trump is the courts. There are so many lawsuits against his administration that the New York Times has set up a tracker tool to follow them all. We're even seeing some victories there, such as the blocking of Doge's access to our treasury, challenging their cuts to USAID, as well as the Supreme Court ruling in a 5-4 decision that Trump doesn't have king powers over the courts. Thanks, guys. I know that was hard for you, what with all the bribes, but thank you. The problem, however, is, as you can tell from all the previous stuff I said, these lawsuits are basically all the Democrats have. The courts are the only line of defense they've laid down. All of the extremely expensive eggs in this one basket, which is good, right? You should put all your eggs in one basket. It's a good basket. That's the saying, because Lord knows we've been here before, haven't we? Did it work out last time? Do you think it'll work out this time?
As a federal judge, also for the first time, is now accusing the Trump administration of straight up ignoring a court order, a move that could set up a high-stakes showdown, an existential constitutional showdown, perhaps, between the executive and judicial branches of the government.
Not good. So here's a basic question about all these legal cases against Trump. To what end? I'm not saying the courts shouldn't block the illegal stuff Trump is doing. But, and then what? When a judge says you need to do something, but then you don't do it, what normally happens? You get punished, right? But when it's the president and his weird rich friend, what then? If the executive branch is telling the judicial branch to get fucked, the vice president literally and stupidly claiming that they have no power over them, then it's up to that third branch to step in, right? Uh-oh, whoops, better get some more tiny signs. This is all to say, if the legislative and judicial branch both fail to stop a tyrant, what is the next thing we do? Do we have to get all Tim Pool about it? I'm way too old to be firing a musket. You guys, I don't want to fire a musket. You gotta do all the, and then you gotta, plus that new season of Daredevil is out, and I hear it's pretty on Disney Plus. But if we're truly on our own, failed by our government, what can we actually do that isn't resorting to violence? I don't want violence, do you? But I also certainly don't want to open the gates to fascism in the name of civility either. Is there something between those two things? Well, after the break, we're gonna try and find it. Maybe the healing power of commerce will help. You know, like it's helped everything else so far. Greetings, salutations, and hello. I'm working on my synonyms. Word equivalent. Anyway, the news is exhausting, and I used to be desperate for a way to keep track of it all without crying, weeping, or being generally sorrowful. Thankfully, I found Ground News, which you can visit via the QR code on the screen. Ground News is a sponsor we sought out that's a website and an app. It gathers news from across the political spectrum so you can compare coverage and see what's what. Like how Donald Trump invoked a 200-plus-year-old law to make it easier for him to deport people. Can I get a sarcastic yippee, hooray, and good gravy? With ground news, I can see that, at least as of the day it happened, less than 10% of the coverage of that story came from right-leaning sources. Basically, just the New York Post. That's curious, no? You'd think they would like the thing that they wanted. It's easy to cut through the noise at ground.news/SMN. With that link, you can get 40% off unlimited access, a factuality chart, and you can even see which outlet broke the news and the political lean of the publication owners. That's a lot of useful information. That's ground.news/SMN to get 40% off unlimited access for yourself or someone you know. The link is in the delineation below. Description. I should just say description. It's in the description. Too many synonyms. Now I can't even speak correctly. Description. News.
Friends and readers! When I became a bookkeeper, by which I mean someone who maintains a lot of books in their home and sells them to the public at a teensy tiny profit, I didn't realize I would also have to keep my books. By which I mean manage my finances and taxes and stuff. Can't someone invent the concept of selling books without having to spend hours and hours managing books? The money kind. But guess what? It doesn't have to be that way, thanks to Found. Found is a banking platform that consolidates your finances and automates expense tracking so that you can focus on books, not books. Oh, and by the way, other small businesses are loving Found too. This Found user said, "Found is going to save me so much headache. It makes everything so much easier. Expenses, income, profits, taxes, invoices even." And Found has 30,000 five-star reviews just like this. That review I read to you for free. But if you read anything else in my home, even the side of a cereal box, you better pay, baby. And I mean it. So open a Found account for free at found.com/morenews. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Piermont Bank, member FDIC. Do not put this one off, folks. Join thousands of small business owners who have streamlined their finances with Found.
Hey folks, here we are. You found me. We were talking about Civil War, that thing with the cannons and you make trenches and everyone gets to wear those cool red sunglasses. Lots of fun. But counterpoint, could we not? Also, I was being dramatic for the sake of the ad break. To be exact, we were merely talking about all the checks and balances of our government failing to stop a confused old man from declaring himself king, starting multiple trade wars, detaining protesters, and allowing an oligarch to pillage our country because everyone picked on him. No one in the Democratic Party seems to care much, probably because they're all rich and old. So it's time to talk about what we citizens can do. Drugs? Can we do drugs? Yes, but also, and other stuff too. Now, this is going to come in two parts, the boring chore part and the fun protesty part. Sadly, they are both important, and both can be fun if you're on drugs. I'm sorry. Do not do drugs. Really? They're saying don't do it. So the chore part is mutual aid. You know, the idea of communities coming together to mitigate the neglect of our government. Something we shouldn't have to do, but we gotta. Like, let's say if your city is on fire and the federal government threatens to withhold aid for some reason, and or certain established systems break down, again, for some reason, mutual aid would be pretty helpful to yourself or your neighbors. Or what if the government decides to completely destroy the Department of Education? Well, it would be good for all the teachers in the area, whether they teach in public school, private school, charter school, or Shredder's Dojo, to talk to one another and the public. For example, in Nashville, they formed the privately funded Educators Cooperative to encourage professional development and collaboration for all of the teachers in the greater area. This collaboration especially helped students who were forced to switch schools due to being in unstable living situations. as their former teachers could communicate the students' needs to their new ones without them needing to catch up or be left behind. Good idea. You're gonna need that in terms of supporting immigrants, queer kids, and other groups of students that are being specifically targeted. There are foundations like the Center on Immigration and Child Welfare Initiative and the Trevor Project that could help fill in those gaps. For everyone involved, you can donate school supplies and money to your local school district supply drive and nonprofits that help underserved communities. But the point here isn't just to feel better about yourself or to tell yourself you're helping. It's actually about creating tendrils within a community, demonstrating through works that we're all in this together and helping each other is good. Propping up your neighborhood in case that neighborhood might someday need to protect itself or be self-reliant. Often these efforts are designed to be multi-purpose for that reason. Starting a community garden or renewable microgrid is a good way to mitigate climate change, but more importantly is a good backup plan for when our government fails to aid a disaster. Starting a food pantry in your area is yet another tactic that both helps people right now and gives you the infrastructure to build a community. Or maybe you're in the city. Well, we all know about worker unions, but why not start a tenant union? That's a thing, and it's as simple as just asking people in your apartment building if they want in. You can even call for a meeting in the lobby of your building for everyone to discuss their concerns. Or while we're cooking, you could simply volunteer at your local library. Keep it alive because it's gonna need help. Donate stuff, not just dumb books. You can donate a lot of stuff. Some libraries rent out tools, for example. Or maybe your city or town has a swap shop where people can drop off items for others to take home. All of these things, and this is key, allow you to get to know your neighbors. Maybe they're cool, maybe they're a ninja, or that Finn Wolfhard kid, or some other much better thing we couldn't think up. Damn drugs! Because a lot of us, as individuals, can't start a revolution. Some of us are old, some are tired, some are broke, some are all three. But we all have something to offer, even if it's just to physically be there in case something like this needs to happen.
This is the scene playing out in cities across the country. Neighbors taking on ICE agents. In Nashville, they formed this human chain, successfully blocking 2 immigration agents from taking away a father who's lived here for the last 14 years.
Those aren't soldiers, they're just people. For the record, that's from 5 years ago, but it could and should also happen tomorrow. This is the real point of mutual aid, to protect the people the government is failing to help. So in terms of ICE and immigration, there are some other things you can do. If you live in a mixed status household or know someone who's undocumented, speak to an immigration lawyer about petitioning for the person who doesn't have legal status. If you're here through DACA, do the same thing and contact an immigration lawyer to see if you are eligible for a renewal or advanced parole. Don't dox yourself by posting on social media, as law enforcement may monitor it and zero in on your location. If you're bilingual, volunteer to interpret or translate on immigration cases. Obviously, some people might already know this stuff, but it's good to get it out there. The sharing of information is extremely important. As this administration has made clear, they want to get rid of information. Know your rights and inform others of theirs. They want people in the dark. The National Immigrant Justice Center has tips and techniques on what to do and not do if you encounter an ICE agent. Apparently, informing people of their rights is a crime now, so I guess be careful with that. And as a general note, avoid ICE. Don't invite them in. Don't talk to them. Just mean girl the shit out of them. Tell them to gargle your balls. There's no evidence that story is true, but it can be true. Because if you have the privilege to do so, you should absolutely stand up for the people around you. I'm not saying to get violent, but it's important to let ICE know that they are not welcome around you. And perhaps keep tabs on them, like some people are doing, provided you make sure what your legal boundaries are. Be careful. As we've discussed in the past, they're not just detaining criminals or illegal immigrants, but also legal immigrants, citizens, people young and old. They have quotas for their mass deportations and prison camp agenda. Keep doors shut, refuse to cooperate, boo them, make them feel bad about the job choices they've made. If the Quakers can do this stuff, so can we. If you wish to donate your time and money, you can seek out an immigrant-led organization near you to offer your help or donate to nonprofits that offer free to low-cost legal representation for immigrants through the Immigration Advocates Network. Even if you live in an area that seems very progressive, you have to be prepared for your local government to fail on this. Not because they necessarily want to, but because they are being forced to.
We're not allowed to enforce federal immigration laws, I've said, but we're also not going to get in the way of ICE, and I don't recommend that those officials, like local or state officials, to obstruct ICE. That's not a wise course of action.
Immigration has been brought to the forefront this week with President Trump's return to the White House. On his first day, he signed roughly 24 executive orders, including one that vows to withhold federal funds from sanctuary cities.
Extremely chilling how many school districts felt the need to send out assurances that they won't let ICE try to detain students. But those assurances can only go so far. You might have to, dare I say, block the entrances to those schools at some point. Fun stuff. It'll be like playing Red Rover with fascists. Reich Rover. This is where we come to the second part beyond mutual aid. The fun part, where once we're a community, we can actually mobilize. I mean, there's no actual order here, and communities can be formed via protests too. Also, I don't have to explain to you how to protest. You get the sticks, you put paper on it, draw a dick or whatever. I'd rather point out how important and easy it is. I mean, thanks to being funded by extremely wealthy people, the far right has managed to be very loud with very few people. They love this. They love pretending to be a grassroots movement when they super aren't that. Those anti-lockdown protests, it was just one group doing that. In 2021 and 2022, 60% of book challenges were initiated by only 11 people. And yet somehow, these people managed to hijack the entire national conversation, often by moving around a lot and targeting very low-level locations. Moms for Liberty, for example, is a fake grassroots group that goes around harassing and/or joining school boards before pushing for book bans. Hate groups like the Proud Boys go from city to city to demonstrate. I mean, just look at all the people who bust in on January 6th, right? These people have realized that the best way to attack something is at the knees. They have been going from drag show to abortion clinic to school board meeting, exhausting everyone who dares disagree with them. People who, I'd argue, have no real power to stop them. And this shows both how vital it is to oppose these people and how simple it is if you actually know what to do. And while we shouldn't be liars or bullies or funded by billionaires, unless they want to, Cuban, my DMs are open, my man, we can and should be aggressive and loud in the coming years, and specific about where we protest. And the good news is, we are already doing that.
Tesla's stock was hit hard with its steepest drop in 5 years. CEO Elon Musk's controversial role in the White House causing fallout for the company.
And for some who drive Teslas as well.
100 dealerships, just like this one across the country, targeted to send a message to the White House and Elon Musk.
Vandals are protesting Elon Musk's growing power in Washington.
Weekend protests at the Chicago Gold Coast Tesla dealership were peaceful. In New York, there were arrests after a demonstration at a Tesla showroom. Last week in Oregon, the windows of a dealership were shattered by bullets. And in Massachusetts, a Tesla charging station went up in flames.
Woof! Turns out that when you do Nazi salutes, it doesn't really do wonders for the popularity of your company. Shucks. Well, you can't learn something unless you try first. I'm sure he'll bounce back, what with committing fraud to take advantage of Canada's rebate system, allegedly. Of course. Allegedly. Maybe there's a perfectly innocent explanation for why a single Tesla dealership claimed to sell 4,000 cars over a single weekend. Now, I'm not saying you should physically assault or harass or vandalize any individual driving or owning a Tesla. I mean, you could point and laugh at them, give them the old thumbs down, and if they're driving a newer model, that does mean that they probably knew they were supporting a weird white supremacist billionaire when purchasing that Cybertruck. Like, I get it. Maybe you bought your car many years ago, but I'm sorry to say, it's now a Nazi car. Sell the car. Sorry, I'm sorry. Take the bus. It's unfortunate. I'm also not saying, for the court record, that people should vandalize Tesla dealerships. I mean, you don't have to set them on fire. They do that on their own already. And no matter your view here, it needs to be noted that acts of vandalism and violence will be used by fascists to increase their fascist crackdowns. Historically, we know this. They're already calling someone keying cars domestic terrorists. So be careful. But protests seem good. Equating the purchase of a Tesla with supporting a Nazi is good because it's correct. Is it the fault of the employees that the company they work at is suddenly a Nazi company? No. Getting a new job is hard, I get it. But, Nazis. Sorry, you're working for a weird Nazi guy. I don't know what else to tell you. Just this February, Elon Musk replied his 100 emoji to a meme using the F slur posted by a now banned Nazi account. Don't work for him, don't drive his cars, period. He did the Nazi salute twice. Let's see it again. Made a little grunt too. You know how you scowl and grunt when saying your heart goes out to people? Sorry, Nazi car. Like, had Musk apologized or stepped down from Tesla and Doge, or had Trump disavowed Elon after that, or had there been any consequences, then maybe people wouldn't have to physically show up at dealerships and voice their anger. But as I said, no one's helping us. And it turns out that people really, really don't like Elon Musk and his Doge team. Along with these Tesla protests, Republican lawmakers are being overrun with angry constituents at town hall meetings specifically pissed about Musk's little gang of efficiency freaks. Elon will simply not shut the up and is just spiraling and doubling down, often contradicting Trump himself. He is a very stupid man, and you can even see Trump and his administration starting to show concern. Trump is now having to handhold him through the backlash, selling his cars in front of the White House and saying that it's illegal to not like Elon Musk. It's now domestic terrorism to vandalize Elon's little stupid cars. Real snowflake behavior. Also, that sure means that these protests are working, doesn't it? People don't like the shit he's doing, and by extension, a whole lot of what the GOP is doing too. It is very obvious that Democrats have an opening with Musk and should be doing nothing but tethering him to the Republican Party, which desperately wants to avoid the angry crowds and are now starting to avoid town halls. For the record, dismissing the angry town halls is exactly what the Democrats did in 2009, right before they lost the midterms. Even if the majority of angry constituents are Democrats, this is still good. These town halls are actually drawing more members into these Democratic groups. It's working for them. Unlike what the party leaders think, it's actually good to be the story, because that narrative gets picked up by non-Democrats as well. Keep doing this is my point. Keep protesting Tesla and showing up whenever a Republican dares to pretend to be a regular citizen. This might be controversial to say, but as long as there isn't violence, I think it's good to tell people like J.D. Vance he isn't welcome in public. He's traded that in for power and money at the expense of the taxpayers. He doesn't get to ski anymore, sorry. Don't give them an inch. Do not allow the normalization of fascism. Like if Steak and Shake wants to advertise their throwback fries with a Nazi font, as in literally the Nazi font, and go full MAGA, and host RFK while he talks about how vaccines have ghosts in them, well then guess what people need to do in front of Steak and Shakes now? Guess what employees should be doing right now? The company is literally courting white supremacists and fascists to promote their new beef tallow fries. Other companies do that too, without invoking Hitler. For every headline, for every sensible person, the narrative needs to be Steak and Shake is now a Nazi brand. Forever. Because that's what it now is. It's not petty to point that out, or to protest a restaurant chain for supporting fascism, because the right is currently going all in on Steak and Shake as we speak. That is the battleground they chose, so that's where we need to go. Anyway, brilliant segue to our ads. They aren't Nazis, as far as we know. Wow, bad enforcement, Cody. Bad job, ads. Toodles, my noodles. The hello kind of toodles, if toodles didn't mean goodbye. It can be really helpful to have an accountability buddy when it comes to your wellness routine. For me, it's Fred from the movie Drop Dead Fred. He reads me inspirational quotes and kicks my butt into gear out on the hiking trail. But best of all, he keeps me on track with AG1, so I can support my digestion, energy levels, and skin health. Fred cares about my skin, you see. And he's promised to never play rude pranks on my friends anymore. I'm friends with Fred the character from the movie Drop Dead Fred, and not Rick Mayall, the late English comedian and actor who played Fred in Drop Dead Fred. Just want to make sure that's clear. When it comes to foundational nutrition supplements, Fred and I stick with AG1. He's drinking one next to me, just off camera right now. I'll join him. Sensational! Somebody sensational me. Different movie. When it comes to my health, I want something I can trust, and that's why I choose AG1. With science-backed ingredients and real benefits, I can feel the benefits. AG1 makes it easy to support overall wellness every day. And that's why I've been partnering with AG1 for these many years. And AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs in your first box. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/more news to get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/more news to start your new year. Fred celebrates the new year in late March on a healthier note. Hello. Ads. I told you ads. Welcome back. I have some good news, or rather, I had some good news, which was that Americans seem pissed about what's happening. But there's some new good news, which is that there are some Democratic leaders who are meeting this moment to an extent, who are reacting appropriately to our president dabbling in fascism and a government that has begun detaining legal residents for their speech. Let me show you what that looks like. Let me show you what an appropriate reaction is.
How many more New Yorkers? How many more New Yorkers will you detain? How many more New Yorkers without charge? Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
That is New York State Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani absolutely laying into Trump's border czar, seemingly having to be held back by the police lest he eat the man's entire head. That is what I would consider a measured response to what they are doing. Good for him for properly representing the rage of the people he represents, because most of us don't have access to these ghouls currently fleecing the American people. And it's extremely frustrating when the people who do have access don't do anything with that. So good for him. I don't know, maybe you see that as being still performative. The guy is running for New York City mayor after all. But also, vote for him. Maybe he'd be a better mayor than the disgraced former governor. And even if it is performative, it's effective. Forbes posted this video with the headline, "Viral Moment," because yes, as I keep saying, you want to be the story. And there are other Democrats who see Elon Musk and all the Nazi stuff as a clear opening. Bernie Sanders, for example, is visiting key swing districts on a fighting oligarchy tour aimed directly at Musk. AOC is hosting webinars explaining the rights of immigrants even after being told that it was illegal, which it isn't, until it is, I guess. Over in Connecticut, Senator Chris Murphy has been very vocal about his party moving away from progressive ideas and how much that sucks and eats. I do have some notes regarding some of Chris's other opinions, but here he doesn't seem alone in this sentiment. Thanks to these freaks being, politicians, we are seeing Democrats try to stand out by specifically opposing Trump. Maine Governor Janet Mills is refusing to follow Trump's executive order banning trans girls from sports. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is whipping out the actual N-word. No, bad phrasing.
If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic.
Nazi. He said Nazi. Good for him. Accurate. See how this is better than inviting Steve Bannon on your podcast? And while we're talking about Nazi junk, we should talk about the growing rage amongst federal employees. One of the first things Hitler did was ensure that everyone around him was a loyalist. He did that through violent means, but also political means. For example, replacing local police and local governments with his people. Trump is currently and very blatantly looking for loyalists in every position he can put them in, and it would help him greatly if the old guard were to just go away. There's a reason they ran that buyout scam to get people to voluntarily quit. There's a reason he's embracing Elon and Doge despite the unpopularity. He doesn't care about economic turmoil or the country falling apart. He is very clearly and immediately trying to break down the federal government and isolate America so that he can rebuild it in his image. Or maybe not even rebuild it. Maybe he just wants to pee on the ashes. But it's nice to hear actual people in the government say this stuff and recognize how scary it all is. And we should look for these helpers and rally behind them. We're lucky to have them. In fact, one of the benefits of having Elon Musk, a stupid person, stupidly hacking off the limbs of the government is that he's creating an entirely new resistance made up of former and current federal employees. Because Elon Musk is bad at running stuff, and his employees often learn that the hard way. There are Democrats capitalizing on that. For example, arranging a class action lawsuit against Musk for his cuts. It warms my icy heart, ooh, so cold, to see that many federal employees appear to be organizing on Reddit and refusing to resign, which is good because the current administration wants them to resign. Please don't resign if you can handle it, please. But they will need more help. He's going to find all sorts of ways to punish these people. They need to be supported. A lot of people need to be supported, and I'm sorry I couldn't get into detail about every single one of them. But we need to support Brad. And for the average person wondering what they can do to help Brad, sometimes it's as easy as not cooperating. Interesting coincidence, but there's a declassified CIA manual that's suddenly getting popular online that's devoted to tactics for sabotaging organizations from within, simply by using incompetence. It's called the Simple Sabotage Field Manual, and you can read it for free on Project Gutenberg. It outlines passive tactics that an average citizen can use to gunk up the process for, fascism. This is especially relevant if you work in the government or for a large and terrible corporation, maybe a fast food place courting Nazis or a car company run by, at best, a Nazi sympathizer. Basically, this manual is the CIA's guide to trolling, with advice like, quote, misunderstand orders, ask endless questions, or engage in long correspondence about such orders, quibble over them when you can. And do your work poorly and blame it on bad tools, machinery, or equipment. Complain that these things are preventing you from doing your job right. And haggle over precise wordings of communications, minutes, resolutions. And my favorite, work slowly. Think out ways to increase the number of movements necessary on your job. Use a light hammer instead of a heavy one. Try to make a small wrench do when a big one is necessary. Use little force where considerable force is needed, and so on. It also has some advice we can't legally suggest you follow, and really we're not recommending you do anything. But it's filled with fun little ways to passively use incompetence as a tool of protest. Something a lot of us probably don't need a guide for. But mainly the reason it's interesting is that it reminds us that anyone is capable of fighting against something using very few tools. A person doesn't need to be John McClane, they can just be Bill Lumbergh. And for once, people can take the torments of bureaucracy and harness them for good. And so if you're one of many people who simply feel too tired for any of this shit, well, maybe you can use that exhaustion. Do what you can with what you have. Because the good news here is that mutual aid and doing the right thing isn't just easy, but comes naturally. Cooperation is pretty vital for evolution, no matter what somebody who maybe we could talk about for a few hours tells you about lobster hierarchies. In fact, while any modern conservative would decry this as socialist nonsense, mutual aid is pretty embedded in America's history and is a key component of resistance movements. Stuff like the Black Panther Party's free breakfast program in 1969 involved giving kids food at local churches every week. Up until the FBI and cops ran a propaganda campaign against it, as well as, on one occasion, pissing on the food. Boy, cops are bad. Or remember the COVID pandemic? Sure you do, it's not over yet. But did that suck? Not only was Trump president, but the entire country decided to throw poor and disabled people into a grinder and feed the slurry to shareholders. It was pretty much just up to us, just like it is now. Per one estimate, the number of mutual aid groups in the US grew within the pandemic from 50 to 800, not just out of need, but out of their effectiveness. They further demonstrated their effectiveness in the aftermath of the recent LA fires. They demonstrated it so much that literally the city of Los Angeles reached out to a mutual aid group for masks. Mutual aid is empowering and natural. It gives a voice to the people. It's how we grow and evolve. In every study on the matter, we found that disasters actually make people more compassionate. Again, because that's how we survive. Despite every fake media story about looting or any fictional portrayal of a lawless apocalypse, the reality is that we tend to pull through for each other. The lawless apocalypse is happening inside the government, not in our neighborhoods. In the wake of a major hurricane, for example, studies have seen less property and violent crime, not more. And right now, we are experiencing a disaster. And that sucks. But we're good at disasters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And they will try to tell you otherwise. And in turn, you tell them to eat your shit or shit on the floor. Speaking of, my stomach hurts. Or as the doctor makes me say, my tummy hurts. It's weird, because all those MREs I ate, those are like the dried up food packets. I ate like a bunch of them. And they weren't expired. But I ate a bunch of them, so I should be full. Oof. I'm gonna go do something actionable. Oh my, that was quick. I feel so much better. I ate 6 of those things. It was 9,000 calories. It's a new record for me that I don't want to break. I will be back again. Hold on. Even quicker the second time. Feeling good. Nope. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Just kidding about earlier. I've never pooped. So make sure to like and subscribe. That'd be really nice of you. Leave a comment if you want to be nice, and if you want to be mean, get out of here after you leave a mean comment or a nice one. Like and subscribe is my point. We've got a podcast called Even More News. You can check that out at the podcast store or at the YouTube store, which is this website. We have our podcasts on YouTube now, twice a week now. Oh my God, there's so many things happening. You can also listen to this show, Some More News, as a podcast. If you don't want to look at me, you can just listen to the show. It's fine. And we've got a patreon.com/some more news. And we've got a merch store with a URL that is readable and on the screen right now. And once you read that, you can type it in to the little bar at the top of your little browser, and you can go there and buy some stuff with other stuff on it. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay. You've already left your mean comment. Why would you leave? We're nice here to certain people. We're less nice to others. Thanks for watching. See you later.
Pluto TV has all the shows and movies you love streaming for free. That means laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like The Neighborhood, Boomerang, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller. Mystery is free with countless cases to crack from Criminal Minds, Tracker, and Matlock.
I'm a lawyer, like the old TV show.
And thrills are free with heart-pumping hits like The Walking Dead and Pulp Fiction. Correctamundo. Feel the free Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.